Yo, this is Nick D.
I'm Brie K, and this is Kasari.
You already know what it is, man. It's William Cater.
Yo, this is DJ Lost and Found from the Missing Link podcast.
Hey, what up? It's Miss Hero from Pew Army.
This is Stephen the Levite.
Yo, what's good, y'all? It's your boy YP, aka Young Paul. You know what I mean? Representing the East Coast, New York, Jersey, stand up.
And you're tuned into the That's Not
Christian Podcast. Woo!
Hey, welcome back to another
He said, "Hey,
Chop Shop episode brought to you by the That's Not Christian Podcast. And today we have a former victim of sexual exploitation, but she uses her past and the power of her faith to help others restore and rebuild people in the sex industry. Let's give it up for Samantha Summers-Rivas.
yeah, welcome."
Yes.
Should we put claps back in the background?
Should this episode, should we like warn everybody like this is not suitable for kids, or should we?
Yes, I was gonna mention that. You know, this is not an episode where it's like our normal stuff, even though we talk about everything. But this one is, you know,
I feel like the title would have given that away, though. No,
true,
Like,
but you know,
literally.
sometimes people just click and then
Kids
watch.
watch us.
I was about to say that too. Like I looked at our YouTube.
You didn't know our analytics
insights. Yeah, look
from
at that.
0 to.
I didn't see nobody under 10.
Well, you know, people do listen in their cars and at home, whether with us or even watching us right now.
Yeah.
So, So just fair
That's
warning.
true. That's true.
Child warning, trigger warning.
Trigger warning.
We're
Trigger
gonna
warnings,
be
yes.
talking about some stuff that could trigger people, and so we just want to
Absolutely.
give everybody that heads up. And if you need help with any healthy new coping skills, feel free to reach out to me because I definitely have my tool belt of stuff that I need to use from time to time. So
Let's go.
thank you
Let's
for
go.
giving that warning.
So
Hi,
we got,
guys.
Yeah.
we got Jarvis
Ah.
and Batman.
Hey, thank you for coming on the show. We're excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here,
So how
guys.
did who with Jimmy? Was it you that invited Samantha?
Yeah, so I found out about her because of Voss.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
The plug,
Yeah,
the
plug.
outlet,
Yeah,
the circuit
plug.
breaker.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
that and I messaged him because I was like, bro, I just saw in your bio that it says pupusa connoisseur, and I about died.
That's true, but I was already following you. I was already following you because of Voss, and so
Well, and I had been following you, but I guess I didn't read the bio, or
Yeah.
I don't know if you just added that. And
No,
so
it's
I
in there,
was
yeah.
dying laughing. My husband was like, "What are you laughing at?" And I was like, "Oh, babe, you totally dropped the ball." I'm like, "This guy has pupusa connoisseur in his bio. You should have added that because both of my husband's parents are from El Salvador." So
And you told me that. And you told me that. Yeah.
Oh,
So I gotta come through for some pupusas to make sure that they're legit.
that is
You know,
it's
Jay
such
is
a good food, but it ain't good for you. Let me tell you.
Jay isn't from El Salvador, but he's also a pupusa connoisseur.
Oh, I love pupusas.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. See,
Yes,
I mean, who
yes.
doesn't really? I mean, it's like a flat taco. You know what I'm saying? It's a thick tortilla with all the chicharron and beans and cheese. Like, oh man, the only thing that's good for you about that plate is the salsa roja and the curtido.
Yeah, that's
But
it.
everything else is
It's
really
bad,
bad.
totally
for you.
bad.
So
Totally
bad.
bad. We're not doing that. We're actually doing a fitness challenge right now, so
no
I'm
pupusas.
gonna
no
need to hop on
pupusas.
that.
No pupusas for us.
Speak for yourself. I'm hopping on just because you guys talking about my order, so maybe tomorrow.
Wow, for lunch.
No, not for lunch, for dinner.
But yeah, that's how we got connected, right?
Yeah,
Was
yeah.
Voss. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've known Voss now for a couple of years, I want to say. And I met Voss through Bizzle.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember seeing Voss's Grow the Heck Up, and I was like, grow the heck up. Like these names, man. I'm like, I need
That's not Christian. Grow
Yeah.
the heck up.
I'm like, what's that? What's this? That's not Christian. I need to find out about that too. So yeah, so that's how we initially got
It scares people too. The name kind of like a lot of people don't know where we're coming from, and so
Yeah.
they're like, "What's your show about?" And like, "Are you guys really Christian?"
Yeah, real
I'll actually,
We're all scared. Listen, are
Yeah.
you up for a good conversation? How about that? Because if you are for what you're for, it doesn't
Right.
matter whether you're talking to somebody that's for it or not.
Right.
You're gonna make your point, right? We can
Right.
have even if we weren't on the same page, we could have a civilized conversation. But see, everybody wants to be comfortable.
Yeah.
That's why they're messaging you and asking you first.
Yeah. You were like, I need to meet the guys first. I need to talk to everybody.
I wanted to meet you guys just because my personality is strong in and of itself. So I just wanted to make sure that there was some kind of a balance, I didn't want to come in hot and then everybody's like, oh my God, this girl. We got 60 more minutes with her on this mic. Oh my God.
That's totally cool. We had who do we have on here that was kind of like that? I think it was Will, right? Will Cater came on. He was just going off. It was the show. Yeah, he just ran the show. We're just sitting, listening to and we talk about everything.
He'll go into a tangent though.
I didn't even need to show up for this.
It was a good episode.
Logged on and watched. Yeah, so yeah, that's the only thing. That's the only reason why I wanted to meet up with you guys. But yeah, so that's how I got in contact with Jimmy.
Nice.
And then it just went from there. And then I think, did you already know about the ministry that
I did? Because I found out about it because I think, if I remember correctly, you went to the Victor Marx weekend or something like that with Voss.
So I invited Voss to that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. There you go. So he was sharing like pictures and his, just his whole experience. He was real excited, and then he had mentioned your ministry, and I was like, oh, that's really dope, and so that's when I started following.
Yeah, cool.
Now when you say when we say your ministry, what ministry is that?
I was just gonna ask that if you guys mind if I share about that, just to give everybody a little bit of context. So I run a sex industry survivor-led faith-based nonprofit here in Las Vegas. And we help women and children that have been sexually exploited and or trafficked, as well as their families. So we saw that there was a big gap in services and resources that were not being provided to the families. And a lot of times, if the girls are wound up in the sex industry or they're being trafficked and they have kids, their parents, which would be their kids' grandparents, wind up taking care of the kids, or aunts and uncles or cousins. And so in the foster care community, that's considered fictive kin. That's fictive kin foster care. And so we realized that there was a huge gap right there with services and resources that weren't being provided to the families. So we make it a point to not only serve the victims, but to serve their families as well. And when I say it's a sex industry survivor-led ministry, that means that I myself worked in the sex industry. I, by the grace of God, was not trafficked, but I was around the game all the time. And so I grew up around it. I know the ins and outs of it. And for the past 15 years, we have been serving women and children that have been impacted by the sex industry to any capacity. Before I started my own ministry, I used to be the executive assistant for a friend of mine who is a trafficking survivor. Her name is Annie Lobert, and she runs Hookers for Jesus. So when you want to talk about names and people like not wanting to talk to you, I can't tell you how many times when I was her assistant, I'd be calling up churches, to try to book her for a speaking engagement or to come do a training. And I'd be like, hi, this is Samantha, and I'm calling from Hookers for Jesus. And they'd be like, from where? And I'm like,
is this a prank call?
Yeah, they would hang up on me. And I was like,
I can imagine that.
Let me get to my spiel. And I was like a baby Christian back then too. So I was like, why are these churches hanging up on me? So, but Hookers for Jesus is based off of Matthew 4:19, where Jesus tells them, follow me and I'll make you fishers of men. So a lot of times people don't even know this, but if you have a handful of fish hooks, you have a bunch of hookers in your hand. So it's a play on the word. Also, the Coast Guard that gets dropped down into the middle of the ocean to rescue the person out of the water. The person that drops down with the basket, he's called the hooker as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So dude, when God gave her that name for that ministry, I was like, he knew exactly what he was doing. Just, and just like this, right? People trying to find out, like, what's your angle? Like, I don't understand, or you just get hung up on.
Right. But I mean, even Christ, right? Like he said, he told the Pharisees, like, listen, the prostitutes, the tax collectors are gonna enter the kingdom before you guys. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it all intertwines together. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When I hear those Bible verses, you guys have no idea what that does to me. It just, I mean, I really have to contain my emotion because that, I
It's
never
reality.
I never thought, I was scared when I first started coming to church. I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to tell anybody my story. And I'm just going to make sure that I just come and I pray and I, serve and I do whatever it is these people tell me to do. And hopefully that'll guarantee me my spot in heaven. And so actually when I met Annie was the first person that I had shared my story with. And so it was a big deal, and I shared it with her because she was running a ministry, and I found out the name. And at first I was like, wow, that's so cool. I didn't even know what the meaning of it was. I didn't know that people were offended by it. I didn't know any of that stuff. So
just
for
liked
me,
it.
yeah, I was just like, what? Because for me, it just felt like, wow, this group of people is allowed to be around Jesus,
Right.
to me would like blew my mind because what that meant was that I was allowed to be around Jesus. And so I was like, oh man, yeah, dude. I mean, I was so broken when I got saved. Like for the first 3 months, we'd roll up to the church parking lot and I'd be bawling my eyes out. Like talking about my lashes are like falling off because I'm crying so hard. Like it was an ugly cry for sure. Cause I couldn't believe that I was allowed in church. And
Right.
but I thought I was allowed at first because nobody knew my story. So then I didn't want to say anything because I was like, well, I don't want
You don't want to get kicked out.
Yeah,
If they find out.
I didn't want to get kicked out.
If they find out, it's over.
Yes. But then when Annie started sharing with me about her story, I was like, well, dang, they ain't kicked her out. So I should be good.
Right.
But on the same token, there's a lot of shame that comes with,
But that's what testimonies do, right? When you confess your sin, it empowers other people. Like,
yes,
it allows them to confess their sins because the shame is like lifted off, and once you confess your sin, it is a weight that's lifted off of you, and you start walking different.
Yes.
So it's very powerful, and I'm glad that she took that step, you know what I mean? Because that gave you boldness, to do what you do.
For sure. So yeah, I just started sharing with her that I had worked in the sex industry. I had worked at an all nude strip club from 18 to 21. And how
did you get started in, like, what makes a girl that's 18 say, all right, this is what I'm gonna do this, instead of like going to work at T-Mobile or Starbucks or something like that?
Yeah. So I had already been working since I had been 16 because my dad died from lymphoma cancer in his stomach. And so it was just me and my mom started working like 10, 12-hour days housekeeping.
Right.
And so essentially I lost both of my parents. My dad had passed away, but now my mom is not at home because she's providing for us. And she did what she was supposed to be doing, right? So she's working and trying to keep a roof over our head and food on our table. I actually had a neighbor that worked in that same strip club, and I just saw her like stacking money because she was like, I'm gonna buy a house cash and I'm gonna do this cash. And I was like, cash, like, dang, like what does that mean?
Right.
Because I'm thinking like hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, what are you talking about? And so she just told me what she did. I just saw her grow, from what she was when she first started to what she wound up becoming. And I was like, I need to have a piece of that for sure. Right. So, and you just see the money and you see like, the potential fast growth, but nobody's telling you like how you're going to feel or the psychological consequences and repercussions of that, let alone the psychological consequences and repercussions long term. Nobody talks to you about that. That's why when we say this is a sex industry survivor-led nonprofit, there's not a lot of people that survive working the sex industry. A lot of people wind up becoming addicted to alcohol, pills, drugs, right? And so they accidentally OD, or they take their own life, ODing on that, or putting a gun in their mouth, or hanging themselves, what have you.
Right.
And so there's not a lot of people that tend to survive for the long haul after getting out of the sex industry. I think I'm already at my I'm like at 20. I'm going to be at 21 years out of the sex industry.
Wow.
So that's like a big deal for me, and it's a big deal, but on the same token, like, I still have consequences, and I still have repercussions from when I worked, and a lot of it is psychological. There's still certain things that I have to work with to try to get a tackle on. And I have a therapist for that. I make sure that I have open communication with my husband. I have open communication with my kids. And I just try to maintain
transparency.
Of transparency, so that I don't push myself to a point that's not healthy.
Wow, that's good.
While you were in the industry between 18 and 21, is this something that you told your mom that you were doing, or did she know? No, she didn't.
No. So I had told my mom. My mom was Guatemalan, and man, she loved the United States of America. Boy, let me tell you. She was the most patriotic woman I've ever met in my life. I mean, this woman, she just, she was focused on working and making sure that she was doing any patriotic duties that she needed to be doing herself. And so with the little time that she had left over from working so much. So I wound up telling my mom that I was working there, but I told her that I was a waitress. But my mom doesn't know about strip clubs or clubs or whatever. So I just tell her that I'm working as a waitress, and she's like, "Oh, okay, está bien." And but we didn't serve alcohol because it was all nude. And for the most part, if you serve alcohol, you're not allowed to be all nude. So that was clearly a lie. If I would have said something like that to somebody else in my family, they would have been like, "Girl, you're lying," but my mom didn't know any better. So that really, was scary not telling her, because I had guys follow me home screaming my stage name from outside the apartment building. I had guys follow me during the day.
That's crazy.
It wasn't smart. I was not smart at all. You're 18, you're like,
I said you're young,
you're all figured out, and you think you're immortal and nobody can do anything to you. You're untouchable, and
wow,
you wind up finding out the truth about life real quick.
So now, all of this is happening in Vegas. Like, are you from Vegas, or
no? This happened in North Hollywood, California.
I'm in the Valley.
I lived in Sherman Oaks, but I worked in North Hollywood, which is also a real stupid thing to do. And the club that I worked at was literally like 15 minutes from my house. Stupid.
Oh, wow.
And most of the time, girls live far from the club that they work at because they don't want to wind up running into
being recognized, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah.
And the reason I ask is because I know I had been to Vegas one time. I've been there, I think 2-3 times. And then when I went there, I didn't know that there was like this free prostitution thing where they were like advertising females on like trucks and cars. You're like walking down the block, going through the hotels, looking at
so what they do, and it's so confusing to everybody, because everybody is like, I didn't know that prostitution was legal in Vegas, and I constantly have to remind people it's not. It's not legal in Vegas.
Okay.
Where it's legal is in Pahrump. So in Pahrump, about an hour from where we're at, there are brothels. And so, they have all the brothels there, and people can drive over there and it's legal, you know. I mean, we saw that big case with Lamar Odom over.
Oh, right.
Oh, that's where it was at.
Yes, it was over here. And then they had to, you know, fly him out to the hospital that they had him out over here. But yeah, it's like it's not legal in Las Vegas. However, escort agencies are legal. And so those are the billboards that you see on trucks that are going up and down the strip, and, you know, the flyers that they're passing out and things like that.
Right.
That's what you see. It's like girls straight to you or whatever it says. And those escort agencies, you know, if you call them, they're like, yeah, these girls are here just for your entertainment purposes at all. Like, you know, we're not. Yeah, exactly. It's like
they're just gonna go on a date with you.
So I have a question. I'm glad that you brought up that it's not legal in Las Vegas, right? But to my understanding, right, is sex work legal in Vegas, or is that considered sex work, right? Because now you have this campaign of sorts that are trying to legalize, you know, sex work. So is stripping?
Yeah. So there's a big push.
And all that.
So yeah. So that's where everything gets all convoluted, right? Together, everything is kind of like mixed into the same pot. And so, so if you work at a brothel, you have to get certain licensing through the state of Nevada to be able to work at that brothel. And you have to get a sheriff's card and a work card. And I forgot what else you have to get to work there. But same thing with working at a strip club. If you work at a strip club, you're viewed as an independent contractor. So you have to get a business license. You have to get a sheriff's card. It's the state's way of, you know, making
money.
They make money off of that. Yeah. And then supposedly they keep tabs on you like that too. But I have yet to see that. So
right.
But yeah, that's pretty much what it is, if that answers your question. So there's a big push right now to legalize. I want, when they say sex work, it's like such a broad, it's such a broad statement to make, right? It's an umbrella statement, really. And so everybody's like, yeah, you know, if we're doing porn, we should be able to do it, and da 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 da. We're working at a strip club, we should be able to do that, and blah blah blah. What they're really talking about is making it legal for prostitution, because their argument is that if you make it legal, then trafficking will go away, and that's not true. Because we've seen it in other countries where they've tried that, and all it did was drive the market down deeper and darker.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so never be pro sex work. I know there's other organizations that claim to help women that have been in this, in the sex industry, and claim to be pro sex work.
Okay.
I also see a lot of people pushing that have never worked in the sex industry. So when they have gone through the emotional and psychological trauma that I have and still have to deal with that, then I can have a conversation with them. But until then, it's kind of like, you want to have an opinion on something that you have no idea about. I mean, it's not easy, guys. And like, it sucks. And then to be vulnerable and transparent about that sucks too. You know, it doesn't feel good. But there's a community of survivors that we all talk and speak together. And there's a lot of comfort in knowing, like, hey, you're not the only one that's dealing with this particular thing. I'm dealing with it too. And, this is kind of what, I've been praying myself through, what I've been talking about with my therapist with, and things like that. So there's a big push to legalize. I'm not even going to say sex work, because what they're trying to legalize is prostitution.
Right.
And it's not something I'm ever going to co-sign on.
Right. So the ministry, it moved to Vegas, or was it like you were already in Vegas and you said this is like good soil, good grounds to start?
So what happened was, me and my husband moved out here when our daughter was like 2.5. and we got saved or became Christians when when she was 6 years old. And so yeah, and she's about to be 21 in like 2 weeks. So
wow.
So
yeah, she's gonna be 21. My son's gonna be 16. So we moved out to Vegas, and me and my husband were not believers. And he had his own childhood trauma that he had not dealt with. I had my own trauma that I had not dealt with. And so, man, that was a cocktail for disaster.
Yeah.
Thank God,
But thank God, right?
yeah, thank God we're going in April. We're going on our 23-year anniversary.
Let's go.
Congratulations.
I know, it's like a unicorn.
What's that, 99? You got married in 99?
Don't put her on the spot like that, dude. Will she forget?
Yeah,
The math is so bad. I'm sorry.
My bad.
That's part of my trauma.
Carrying on. So you were talking about your kids.
Now they're gonna have a talk, man.
Yeah.
After this. You don't remember when we got
Jag, my bad.
I know. Oh my gosh. No, and he knows it. I'm always like, when is our anniversary? And so he's like, oh, so it's on the calendar, and it gives me a reminder the week before, 3 days before, and then 24 hours.
Yo, that's smart though. That's smart. I like
I have
that.
a lot on my plate, okay? So we came out here, and then we came to know the Lord when Valerie was like 6 and Jacob was 1. And I didn't start the ministry. Well, okay, I was with Annie for a while, right?
Well, before you get into that, how did you come to the faith? How did you like hear the gospel?
I worked at a casino at a salon, and in most of the casinos here, they have what's called an EDR, which is the employee dining room. It used to be lit, but it ain't no more. So they used to give you real good food, but from what I hear now, it is people can be getting food poisoning.
Don't go there, guys.
Don't go there. So I was in the EDR with some coworkers, and it was going to be Easter, right? Which is like the big push to invite all your unsafe friends. You know, it doesn't work because I'm a product of it.
She's a product of Easter.
I'm a product of your pastors pushing you to invite your unsaved friends to the Easter service. So they asked me, they were like, hey, do you want to go to church with us? And just at them asking me that, I started bawling, crying, like hyper crying. Because Joe and I had gone through so much, and I was like, I don't know what we're doing wrong or what we're missing. And I had grown up Catholic. So, I mean, I knew God, but I didn't understand Jesus or grace, right? And so I just knew like I was not a good person, so I was probably not going to go to heaven. Like, and I that always lingered in the back of my mind. And so they asked me, and I just started bawling, crying, and one of the girls held my hand. She prayed for me right then and there. And I was a mess. I was wrecked. And so I said, yes, I'll go. I was like, I've tried everything else. You know, I've tried, new age stuff. I've done brujerias. I have, I dabbled in all that. And so, I just, I knew I had tried everything, but, this Christian church that they were trying to describe to me. So that, we went in and they did an altar call, and man, I like almost ran up to that altar. I don't even I think I left Joe like in the seat, like with the kids. Like
I'll be back.
I didn't even say that. I just left. And I was a mess. And like I said, for 3 months, like just pulling into the parking lot, I mean, I just couldn't believe that I was allowed to come to church, and then I'm trying to like keep my relationship with Jesus as long as I could until people were going to find out that, what my past was. So that's pretty much, how that happened. And then I wound up meeting Annie. Then I was with Annie for a while. And then,
this was at the same church?
Yes. Yep. I was with Annie for a while. And then I really felt God, splitting us to cover more like
more ground.
More ground. Yeah. Like
different demographic too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I didn't want that. I didn't want that because I had seen the heartache of running a ministry, and I had seen Christians doing and saying things that weren't very Christian,
Right.
That's not Christian.
That's not Christian.
I said that's I love this name. I've said that so many times. I'm like, that's not Christian. So, I mean, I didn't want that. And I wrestled with God a lot. And I was like, I'm a really good behind the scenes person. Like, I'm awesome at making other people's lives easier. Like, my admin skills are great. Like, my communication skills are great. Like, I can hype you up like no other, but I can't hype myself up. I don't like any of that. Like, I get worried, because I'm like, I don't want to sound like I'm narcissistic or like some freaking, know-it-all or whatever. So yeah, I struggled for a couple of years and wound up being like completely disobedient to what God was calling me to do. And then I got chastened, and then that didn't feel good. And I was like, fine, I'll do it.
But that's crazy because that's how it like always works, right? Like with Moses, he was like, me, like I got a stuttering problem, or Gideon, I'm afraid. Like, am I really gonna do this? And then it's like Lord always chooses those kind of individuals, right, to step up and kind of like
right.
Yeah, and I've had it's funny because Annie used to always tell me, Sammy, you're like Gideon. And she's like, man, she is polar opposite of me. Like, I meet somebody and I'm like, what are you all about? You know what I'm saying? And Annie comes and she's like, Jesus loves you. And she's like so happy. And I'm like, oof, I do not hand out like trust and all that like that. I just can't, because I've seen so much. And so, yeah, I mean, we wound up doing, what we're doing right now, but we hadn't filed for the 501c3. And then in 2019, we filed for the 501c3. And I'm just like, Lord, I don't know what all this means, what all this entails, but dang, let me tell you, slowly but surely, I've learned it. And it's a lot, because it's not like you're just serving who God's calling you to serve, right? There's this whole other back end of it, like the business portion of it,
right?
That you're like, who prepared me for this, And it's such a learning curve, and it's very humbling. And you totally rely even more so on God for it.
Amen. How do you encounter, right, like these individuals, right, like sex survivors, right? Is there a recruiting going on? Is there like a network? Like, how are they coming to you? Like,
they're coming to me. So there's basically, I'll go to different strip clubs, talk to the girls there.
Oh wow.
We go to the porn convention every year. We haven't the last 2 years because they've opted to go virtual. Okay. But yeah, the porn convention out here is huge. It's 4 days. I'm so drained.
Are you going inside the actual convention, or this is outside? You're going inside. Oh wow. Okay.
Inside. So when I tell, that's why I'm like, it's draining.
Yeah.
Emotionally, right? Because I'm a mom. And so my initial instinct is to like scoop everybody up and be like, we're getting out of here. Yeah, we're getting the hell out of here. So let's go. I just realized I think that's a customer.
Yeah, there's some noise.
No, you're good. You're fine.
I'm like, I was
right. These guys curse all the time. No,
I was looking for one that wasn't as bad. So
yeah. That's all right.
So for me, it's hard because that's 4 days of being in it, like on the floor, walking the floor, talking to the girls, interacting with the girls. I mean, there's girls that are like on the verge of having a breakdown because they're not high enough or drunk enough, and like they're being pushed to say and do certain, like you're acting that whole time. And I think that that's one thing that I wish a lot of guys would would know is that when you walk into a strip club or you walk into the porn convention, or you walk into a brothel, or you buy a girl from an ad, and you're interacting with that girl and she's smiling and she's like, hey, how's it, like, we're acting
right,
like just know that
she just shut you guys down.
like, nobody cares about your day, my guy. Like, nobody cares about your wife not listening to you. Like,
right.
You're not that good looking, all right?
I mean, this portion of the podcast is called Breaking the Fantasy. So
Talk about it.
Yeah.
it stinks, right? Because guys, man, and I'm not one of those women that's like, I'm gonna bash all the men and men are worthless and men are no, like I know, I believe in godly men, right? And I know that they exist. I believe that there are men out there that stand firmly on their convictions and what God has called them to be and what God has called them to do, and those are the men I respect.
Right.
But on the flip side, I've also seen a bunch of men that I'm like, man, you are not living out what God has called you to be. Not only that, you are dragging the daughters of the king.
Right.
And so for me, it's heartbreaking. And so, yeah, a lot of times these guys think that it's all fun and games, and they don't realize that, yeah, that girl that you called from that escort ad that you think she put up, her pimp put that up. And she has a trap that she needs to bring home by a certain time. And if she doesn't have that trap money ready for her pimp, then she doesn't get to come home, or she gets a beating. So it's like, these are things that I really hope that men would take the time to educate themselves on and get acquainted with, because those ads and those smiley faces and the girls coming up to you, like, you don't know who's behind that or what's behind that.
So let me ask this: do through Rubies, do you guys take the time to educate men too on
Yes.
these things?
Yes. The sad part is
we're not educated. Just say it.
They don't show up.
A lot of us are not educated.
No, because like, look at this. Like, you guys were like, oh yeah, let's have her on. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's guys that want to hear, there's guys that want to know, but can you imagine where would I best reach hundreds, if not thousands of men at some of these big men's conferences, right?
Right.
You think a lot of lead pastors like a woman in leadership?
Even just talking about the situation.
Right.
Yeah.
And then talking about in-house issues, because this is an in-house issue.
Oh, it is.
Do you know the percentage of Christian men that are still watching porn?
It's high.
That are still like clicking on clickbait.
It's really high.
Or going to the strip clubs.
Or
going to the strip clubs or buying girls. I mean, can you imagine the information that I get? Oh yeah, pastors. I've had girls all the time. I remember one time I was in Florida and this one girl came to talk to us and she was like, Pastor so-and-so buys me every other week and I got pregnant and he took me to go get an abortion.
Oh,
wow.
You want to talk about public enemy number one?
Wow.
That would be me, because we get a lot of inside information. Wow. And so, yeah, I would like to see us invited to speak and share and even do trainings at men's conferences. I've been saying that for years.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we've just never been invited, to come and speak. And I think that if men heard it coming from women that have actually been in the sex industry, I think it would hit differently versus like, okay, we're having a men's conference, Jimmy, can you come and do a slideshow on the statistics of men that in the church that are watching porn, that are buying girls, that are going
to be honest with you, I don't even think that's a thing. Like, they don't
even do that.
I've never been to a church where they did that. And like, to keep it a buck with you, like early in my marriage, like I used to struggle with porn, I used to struggle with lust, and to the point where it affected my marriage, and I went to one of these conferences. I went to Every Man's Battle. and there was like hundreds of men there from all walks of life, including like pastors, you know what I'm saying, and leaders, you know. And it was a dope experience to, you know, again, like we were talking earlier about sharing your testimony, and that encourages other people to confess their sins, you know what I mean? It gives them a boldness to really walk, try to walk in righteousness, right? You know, so that's why I'm always encouraged by hearing testimonies like that. But you don't hear it in the church, you know, people aren't talking about it, you know. And it's really sad, because I think a lot of men struggle, well, a lot of people, because I think that also women, it's not talked about women who are addicted to porn too, you know, just like it's not talked about men and boys who are sex trafficked. We did an episode like 2 years ago, right, fellas, on the Super Bowl.
Yes,
And
I was gonna bring that up.
One of the topics was it was like the day that there's like the most sex trafficking is during the Super Bowl. And then a guy who listened to our podcast, he said that boys are also sex trafficked, and nobody talks about that. And that was like something that just blew my mind, you know, because
And,
you don't
he was in
think about
the
it, you don't see it.
hospitality industry.
Yeah, he was in the hotel, right?
Yeah, he mentioned.
I mean,
Yeah,
I was abused when I was a kid sexually, you know what I'm saying? So it definitely happens to men as well, you know?
See, and I wish more men would come out and say stuff like that. Like, it's not easy. Like, it doesn't feel good, you know? I know it doesn't feel good for me.
Yeah.
You know, I constantly say certain things about my testimony and things like that. But you know, and there's portions of my story that I still haven't shared, you know, publicly. You know, I think there's even pieces that maybe I haven't even told Joe yet, because it's just like, it's just so
much
hurtful. And it's like, dang, like you sit back and you're like, how more broken of a person can I possibly be? Like, it's just, for me, it feels whack. You know, it's like, I don't. So I wish more men had the boldness and the courage to say, I was sexually abused. I personally know a lot of men. And you know what? That come out and wind up telling me, or, you know, me and Annie would be somewhere speaking and they would pull us off to the side. And I mean, I had men apologize and say, can I keep my sunglasses on and my hat? Because I don't want to look at you while I'm telling you this.
Wow.
I'm like, yeah, whatever you need to do is totally fine with me. Like, we don't feel disrespected. And to just hear like men break down like babies, you know, and it's like, it just stinks, right? Because, you know, there's so many different rules put into place. Like, you know, men pray with men and women pray with women. And man, I respect that and I get that. But dude, God has really used us to be an outlet for men to come and say like, hey, I was sexually abused, or I was trafficked, or I did webcam. I'm straight. And I did webcamming on gay sites because I needed money, you know, to supply my addiction, or blah, blah, blah.
Right.
You know, for God to be able to use us to be able to pray for these men and then point them in the right direction. I mean, man, what a blessing. But I really do wish that there were more men that would come out and say, you know what, I did struggle with porn, or I was abused, or I did struggle with going to the strip clubs. I mean, there's such freedom in that, and it gives hope to other men that have gone through the same thing, to say, you know what, like I'm not beyond reconciliation with God. I'm not beyond grace and mercy, you know? And so, and that's why, you know, we haven't even touched on this yet. We have a partnership with All Things Possible Ministries, which is led by Victor and Eileen Marks. Victor is a trauma survivor himself. He was physically abused, sexually abused, tortured, and left for dead in a deep freezer.
Wow.
And
I seen you had a podcast episode with him. And
Yeah.
I started watching and I felt like it was gonna ruin the story for me, so I didn't finish watching. I didn't know that about him.
Yeah, man, you know, I respect Victor a lot, dude, because it's not to unveil the details of what's happened to us. I mean, dude, if it's hard for me as a woman, and it's easier for women to be able to share stuff, right? To see a man come forward and say everything that he said, I mean, oh my gosh, dude. I mean, I have nothing but the utmost respect for Victor and for Eileen, because to have a spouse that knows how to help, their spouse navigate through the ups and the downs. And I mean, there's a lot of healing that has to go on
Right.
after that. There's a lot of processing. I mean, there's still some stuff that pops up when I'm talking with my therapist, and then I'm like, I'm not right for like a couple of days after, because I'm like, oh, we just unraveled another piece of the onion, and it's like, now I got to deal with this, and it's like, now you have to process that. I mean, it sucks. It doesn't feel good, So I respect men when they come out and share. I encourage everybody to visit victormarks.com. You can get a copy of his book, The Victor Marks Story. I think there's also like I think there's a video on the book as well. There's like a movie on his website that you can watch too.
Awesome.
And his biological father was a pimp.
Wow.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so we were talking before about you going to these conventions and these strip clubs. Now, walk us through the process of what happened to you. Like, take these girls and say, hey, are you like being trafficked? Do you need help? Do you need anything?
So no, and I'm so happy you asked that question, because I think there's like this big misconception about organizations going out and like busting down doors. That's why we're very aware of the wording that we use. Like, we don't ever say that we're saving somebody. We don't ever say that we're rescuing somebody, because only Jesus does the saving, right?
Right.
And the rescuing, unless you're kicking down doors and fully like girded up with heavy artillery, like, you're not rescuing anybody, right? And so we take a very organic approach. I just basically I'm repetitively interacting with the women, either in the strip clubs or out on the blade where the girls are being trafficked, or in the casinos, in the hotels. I'm actively present where this is happening. And so it's just by word of mouth, or the girls seeing me over and over again. We're talking to the girls.
They know why you're there already, right?
If they already know who we are, then yes, and so I have to be very aware of how I move, how I, who I talk to, who I don't talk to, because a lot of the times the girls are being watched. And so, because I've been around this industry for so long, I just, I try to explain it like this. When when you see another Hispanic person, like, let's say you're at the grocery store, you're like, oh, ¿cómo estás? ¿Cómo te va el día? Da, 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 right? Or you're like, let's say you're at the grocery store and you're like, oh, do you have this kind of, soda instead? But you ask them in Spanish and they're like, oh, ¿de dónde eres? It's just a commonality, right? And so I feel like within girls that have been in the industry and that are not in it anymore, like, there's just like, there's a foundation of commonality there. And so, it's like game recognizes game, dude. Like, we know what's going on. We know what to look for. We know like when it's safe to talk, when it's not safe to talk. Like, those are just things that you want to take into consideration. And so when we deem it safe and appropriate, then we make sure to give them our information in a certain type of way, so that it's done safely and we don't have to worry about getting her in trouble. Or vice versa. And so, yeah, that's basically how they get in contact with me. It's either by word of mouth. They ran into me. I also teach a Bible study once a month inside of the jail here. And it's like girls wind up, they'll be like, oh, you need help with you need to call Samantha. Have you ever met Samantha? And it's real easy, because I have red hair and I wear red lipstick all the time. So everybody girl with the red hair.
So Samantha, what do you say to like men or people that are kind of like insensitive to the whole situation going on, right? Where they feel like, well, why didn't the women just go get help, right? Or run out and just tell the authorities, or do this and do that? or if they've been raped or whatever it may be, right? What's your like kind of like your pushback? Because I'm sure that you're dealing with it and being involved with it. You know more the psychological abuse that goes behind it. So what do you say to those kind of individuals that say things like that?
I used to get mad before, and even now, like I have to find I have to tell myself like, okay, they just don't know, but yeah. I kind of feel like we're in a time now that it's like we just can't afford ignorance anymore.
Right.
Like we just can't, guys. Like we need to get educated. We need to learn. I mean, I like to use that case. It was a very well-known case. A lot of people knew about it, about Elizabeth Smart when she was kidnapped from her family, right? And he used to take her into town, into the grocery store, and this and that. And, I think she does like TED Talks and different kinds of talks now. Mm-hmm. And she's always like, that's the number one question I get asked is, why didn't you were at the store? You could have said something. Like, people don't understand the psychological components behind it. When somebody is constantly raping you, and it's called like the breaking process, right? And a lot of pimps use that too. When you're constantly being raped, when you're constantly being told, if you say anything, if you make one move without me telling you what to do, I'm going to beat you, or I'm going to kill your mom, or I'm going to kill your dad. I'm going to rape your little sister the same way I'm raping you. Wow. I mean, when that stuff is said to you over and over again, I mean, that psychologically makes an impact. It's a psychological tactic that they use, that abusers and predators both use, so it's like, you have to always remember that, and I love that she says that, because I feel like for her to be asked that question, I'm like, that's really freaking insensitive. This girl was held captive, and you're standing there in your freedom, and you're asking her why she's physically free now. And I pray to God that she's mentally free, but I don't know that I don't know that she's going to ever be 100% free. Right. We pray that God would heal all those areas. Right. But it's like, damn, for somebody to stand there and be like, why didn't you say something? It's like,
it's ignorant and insensitive, right?
Yeah. It totally is. And I'm not one of those people that gets offended over everything, like this whole cancel culture. Like, I'm not on that. Right. I'm not on the whole, like, oh, you need to talk to me a certain type of way because I can't be disrespected and da-da-da-da-da. Like, I'm not on that, dude. Like, everybody communicates differently. Everybody understands things different. Like, I get that. There's grace and there's mercy. But then there's like, okay, guys, let's not be so insensitive to somebody that has gone through something so sexually traumatic. And I think that part of that is because as a culture and a society, we are so extremely desensitized to sexual trauma, because you have all these shows that highlight it.
Yeah.
It's normal, right? Like,
you make it a point.
If you grew up watching I mean, I don't even watch TV, so I can't even tell you what's on TV. Like, and that's my fault. Like, I should be paying attention to, it's so hard for me, because I'm like, the stuff that's on TV now, I'm like, when did they start saying cuss words on TV? Or when did they start showing like sex scenes like this on TV? To me, it's crazy, so you're constantly watching that, and then you're listening to, about her WAP, in your car while you're taking your child to his kindergarten class. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and then you're hanging out with your boys, and they're talking about how they went to the strip club last night, and this girl for an extra 20 gave him a blowjob, and this and that. And it's like, I mean, day in and day out, yeah, you're going to be desensitized. It's going to be something that's totally normal to you.
Right. But not
So-
just us as adults, but our kids, right? Because we're listening to it in the car on the way when we're driving to, you know what I mean, to drop them off at school, you know, like
Yes.
it just becomes part of the culture when the kids are on TikTok or whatever, like kids are dancing, moms and daughters are dancing to these songs, right?
On TikTok videos.
Yeah, nobody's even paying attention to the lyrics, you know, it's just something that's viral.
Yeah, they're just listening to I mean, to me, when I see that, I'm like, wow, where are we at? Like, common sense left the building a long time ago, you guys. Like a really long time ago. It's not funny to me. It's like when, like, you know, I remember when Joe and I, when our kids were small, right? And we'd be at family gatherings, and you know, somebody from the family would be like laughing because their 3-year-old little boy is saying bad words.
Right.
You know, and they're like, oh, ha, 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 it's so funny. And it's like, no, it's not funny.
Right.
It's not funny. And then, oh, I remember one time that did happen. And then he said a bad word to me. And then they tried to correct him. And I was like, why are you correcting him?
Right.
You were laughing at him 5 minutes ago.
Right.
He's a kid. He thinks that this is funny. You showed him that it was okay. So now when he goes and cusses out an adult, when he goes and cusses out an adult, don't try to reprimand him then. You know, and it's like these things culturally that to me, it's parte de la cultura. I don't care. It's not okay. It's not acceptable. You know, a 28-year-old man impregnating a 13-year-old. Oh, pues así es allá. You know, that's just how it is in our countries. No, dude, I don't care. I don't care what country we're in. I don't care where we're at. I don't care what's going on. It's not okay. That's not part. You don't normalize something by saying, oh, that's just part of the culture. Well, I'm not regulated by the culture. I'm regulated by the word of God. So
that's actually a true story, right? That really happened. Like I saw it in the news. I saw it on Instagram. Yeah, like the dude got arrested because he showed up at
the hospital because they think it's okay. And he's like, "What's the problem, sir? The problem is
you're a sir.
Yeah, you're a sir. She's a child."
I remember being in the cab when I was young, and this guy was like, you know, the cab driver was talking to me, and he's like looking at the young chicks, right? He's an older man already. And he's like, oh, yeah, you go to school with those girls? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, yeah, you know, I like them young like that because then you could like raise them up and mold them, you know what I'm saying, to be your wife when they get older. And I'm like, what the heck?
It's called grooming. It's a pimp tactic. Like, yeah, predators and pimps have used that for years. So, you know, I hate to go off like that. I was trying not to, but
no,
you're on the right show.
You're on the right
show.
That
gets me real worked up. Like I don't like when we're hiding behind. You know, it's part of the culture.
Yeah.
You know, that doesn't mean anything to me. Everybody was so excited. Oh, the halftime show. Oh, you know, we're gonna have Snoop and this and that on there, and it's like Snoop calls himself a pimp all the time. And has even gone on Rolling Stone magazine and said, you know, I pimp girls not even because I need the money, but because I just want to be pimping.
Wow.
But we're going to go over here and we're going to crip walk across the living room floor in front of our kids. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Bake cookies with Martha Stewart and everything, right?
Yeah. It's like, come on. It's like, you know, we can't, it's part of the culture. Well, I'm not part of that culture. So.
Right.
What inspired the name RubiesLV?
It's based off of the Bible scripture Proverbs 3:15, where it says, she is more valuable than rubies, and none can compare to her. And so that too is a play on the scripture because people think we're talking about the girls, and that Bible scripture is actually talking about wisdom.
Wow.
And so we want the girls to have the wisdom and knowledge of their Savior, Jesus Christ, right? I'm going to fail them. I'm not perfect, but we point them to Jesus, and that's perfection, right? That's perfect love. That's perfect grace. That's perfect mercy. And so we want them to have the wisdom of their redemption in Christ and how he restores and how he walks alongside of them while they're rebuilding their lives.
Amen.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Bars.
Sam, if somebody is looking online and comes across this video and wants to escape whatever industry it is, what would you say would be the steps that they need to take?
I mean, they can contact us, through the website. They can contact. I mean, there's so many good ministries, right? Like I mentioned, Hookers for Jesus, and All Things Possible Ministries. I mean, just taking that initial step, even though you don't know the other side, what holds a lot of the girls up is the fear of the unknown. We're talking about freedom. We're talking about real independence. We're talking about healing and restoration. And a lot of times when you don't know what that looks like or what that sounds like or what that even means, it's really hard to want to jump into that. And so, and that's what makes it easier for them to stay in the situations that they're in. They don't know what we're talking about, but they know, like, I've taken these beatings, and I've survived so far. I've taken, whatever it is that they've done to me, or I've taken, exploiting myself every single night in a club. And I wish there was something else that I could do, to make money, to put food on my table for my kids or keep a roof over my head. Like, I get that the fear of the unknown is really hard, but there's steps that we can take together, and you don't have to do them. You don't have to make those steps alone. So I would encourage anybody listening, watching, to reach out to us via our website, RubiesLV.com. And if we're not local to where you guys are at, we can definitely put you in contact with good survivor-led nonprofit agencies that are in your area.
Awesome.
So,
and what can people who may not be in that industry, what can they do to help your organization?
Man, first and foremost, I always like to ask for prayer, because there is a lot of spiritual warfare that happens with what we're doing.
Yeah.
I always like to tell people that there are special legions of demons that I feel like Satan holds onto to just unleash on ministries that fight against any type of sexual trauma, right?
Yeah.
Or sexual sin, because it just seems like the spiritual warfare is intense and like crazy. So I always ask for prayer first and foremost. And then, if people could just commit to giving on a monthly basis, we make it real easy on the website. You can sign up on the website, and even if it's like $5, $10, $25, $50, $100, whatever it is, on a continual monthly basis, that really, really helps us out. Because if there's 100 of us doing that really helps with our funding. And that helps towards doing the outreaches that we do. That helps towards, providing food, clothing, shoes, covering bills for girls. Right now, we're trying to get an office space that we can also use as our drop-in center.
Okay.
And then we also want to have a business attached to that we're working on right now. And so when people donate to RubiesLV, it impacts the victims and their families. It's a direct impact. And what better way to say that we support women that are survivors of trauma, especially sexual trauma, by supporting a ministry that's survivor-led.
Yeah. And I like that you help the families too, because that's not something that you often hear about.
Yeah, it's always the victim that sort of gets the help, and that's pretty I guess smart.
It impacts
and the families of victims too, because if they have kids or something
everybody.
like that. Absolutely.
Yeah. And we recognize that, so we make sure that we offer our resources not only to the victims but to their families as well, because for the longest time, we were missing the mark on that. And then we became fictive kin foster parents. We took in 2 small children that belonged to a girl that had been trafficked, and she just, doesn't have the capabilities of being a safe mom.
Yeah.
And so we've had them in our care a couple of times now. And so that's really hard too. That's really hard to see the consequences generationally, and when there's no healing, when there's no processing, when there's no learning new healthy coping skills, right? What that generationally does for the kids, and then seeing how that impacts the family. So, that was another time that I broke down, because I was like, oh my gosh, we've only been servicing the girls, and their kids and their families are like laying, in the ditch kind of, it's like we're not giving them anything. And so, yeah, that was a very eye-opening season of our ministry. And so that really helped us to make sure that was our focal point. The family as a whole, wraparound services for the whole family.
Wow.
Yeah. Man.
That's great. And you guys do that. One of the things you do is, like provide groceries and things like that as well, right?
Yeah, we like to give the girls gift cards. So everything we do with dignity. We like to do it with dignity. So we'll give them gift cards so that they can go and pick out their own groceries, their own clothing. Right? Because a lot of times what happens, and I know this from firsthand experience. I remember when I was a child and we used to go to different Catholic churches, and we'd get a box of food, and it was like the government block of cheese, right?
That cheese is good though.
It was. They don't make that cheese no more. God only knows what was in it. If you ate government cheese, you gonna survive COVID. So.
They give you the cereal in the bag, right? I don't want this.
Powdered milk in the box, remember, that you had to mix with water? Oh my gosh, you guys. And then I had canned beef. It was like, oh my gosh. All those things I reference back now when we serve others, because I'm like, I didn't like no canned beef. That thing was all coagulated, and the dried powdered milk in the box that we had to mix with water. That thing was disgusting. Yeah. And so it's like, it's hard to ask for help.
Yeah.
It's really, even if you're not being prideful, you're just like, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to bother. So it's like, as soon as we assess that the girls need help with groceries or clothing or shoes or whatever, if we can, if it's something where we can go and buy a gift card, we try to get them a gift card, so that, we're like, hey, here's this gift card. Just wanted to help you out. Every now and then it's nice to have a little boost. And maybe, if you were planning on spending that money, or you didn't have that money, now you have it covered. And, if you were going to spend money on it, now you can use that for something else, or put it in savings, whatever. But it just helps to give them dignity, and that was something that I learned and valued a lot being with Annie in the early years, is that, I saw, man, when you take up a donation for like clothes or, undergarments for women, you'd be surprised at what you get. Like, I didn't know that we had to specify and say new. Right.
Like,
and then we're the ones sifting through all that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this really sucks,
right?
Because you're like, you want to be touched, you're like, I need to put 3 pairs of gloves on to go through this.
Right. You didn't even wash it.
Yeah, I'm like, guys, like, did we have to specify that we needed brand new? So yeah, we try to give the girls everything brand new with tags still on it that they can pick out, or we give them gift cards to go and get whatever they need, because we want to do everything with dignity.
Awesome.
That's cool. That's great. Awesome. I love it.
Yeah, that's really dope.
Man. I'm blessed by that, man. And is there any kind of pushback that you get? I know you had mentioned earlier about the church, right? And sometimes, like, trying to reach out to different churches, but now do you still get like any pushback, or any people that feel like, because you go to these conventions, or because you go to these things, this is not of God, how can this be of God? Do you have any of that kind of aspect?
Yeah. Have you ever been in Victor Marx's comments when he posts about us? I'm like, oh, let me put my phone down for a second.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, when I was with Annie and Hookers for Jesus, like, yeah, that was definitely something that it was very eye-opening, and it hurt. It hurt because I was a baby Christian. And I was like, when I came to the Lord, I was like, yay, we're Christians and we all love each other and we're all nice to each other and this is gonna be great. That's literally how I came in. And then like slowly but surely that got chipped away, right? And then you have to be mindful, right? That bitterness doesn't like take root in your heart. Yeah. But it's just so you're like, what is going on here? I mean, it still blows my mind when I see Christians that ain't behaving Christian like. So I feel like you need to make, if you don't already make stickers of "That's Not Christian," you need to make some, and I would like to purchase a roll.
We got them.
We got them.
I need a roll of those stickers.
We got Jesus with the thumbs up.
Yeah, she's just gonna be handing them out to everybody.
We got the European.
I ain't even going
in the parking lot, right?
I'm gonna peel it off and I'm gonna slap it on them or slap it on their car
on their forehead, right?
Yeah. So that was eye-opening and sad because I felt like Jesus like took me in with open arms, but then it felt like the church kind of didn't. And so I was confused. That's confusing. Like, and I'm reading my Bible and it's like it says that he welcomes me with open arms and that he loves me, right? And now God sees me through the eyes of Jesus. But dang, it's like, that to me was heartbreaking. And it, it felt like a little girl, like realizing the truths of life. That's I look back at that time and that's what it feels like, and so, I've read all kinds of pushback. I purposely stay out of comment sections, whether it's Victor's or mine. I don't have as many followers as Victor, so thank God for that. I don't strive to have a big following, you guys, because that opens up the doors for so many people to come in and chime in and say stuff, and it's like,
it's just so funny, right? Because it's like we'll read 500, right? Let's say, just for an example, like 500 praise God comments. Yeah, keep doing your thing. And then it's just that one person or those two people. This is not of God. This is, and you're like, God, help me.
Well,
I'm about to blow
crazy.
up.
It's crazy that they're so quick to be a keyboard gangster. It's funny because I've seen people out and about.
Oh, that's a lot.
Negative comments, and then I see them. Oh,
you pulled up on them.
Joe won't let me. Joe won't let me. I mean, listen. I either Joe's with me, my husband, or I have security with me. Yeah. And so, like this one time. Oh man, we were at a POD concert, dude. I'll never forget it. And I was like, babe, there's that lady that was blah, blah, blah. And I was like reciting word for word what she had said to me. And he knew who I was talking about. I was like, all right. I'm gonna talk to her real quick. I'm gonna be right back. And he was like, oh, whoa. And he grabbed me by my, he was like, oh no, we ain't doing all that. And I was like, what do you mean? This is healthy. This is in the book of Matthew. You go to that person. Yeah, mom, that's closer. Joe was like, no, dude, that you gonna do something that's totally not even in that scripture.
Shout out to Joe, man. Shout
out to Joe.
And I'm like, you ain't letting me live. Just let me live. I'm trying to live. And so, but I'm just like, you had so much to say online, and now we're here, and we were in a parking lot. So I was like, oh, this is the best setup.
Right.
Ever. Yeah, but Joe, like, he just had to be the Holy Spirit.
The Lord let it come to pass. When you was in the parking lot, you were like, this is a godsend.
That's what I was saying. I was like,
this was ordained by God. Look at this.
This is a divine appointment. But yeah, man, he was not letting me. And I was like, okay, I promise. I was like, I promise I'm just going to have a conversation. Joe was like, no, we're not going to do all that. And I was like, dang, man. But that's my whole thing. It's like and she saw me because I kept looking at her. And she saw me and then she like wouldn't make eye contact. And I was like trying to look at her like, you know, we can talk, like, come over here, you know, like come over here. Cause that's, you know, that was my loophole with Joe telling me no. Right. I was like, well, she walks up to me, then this, you know, I didn't go up to her technically. But yeah, she wasn't trying to get none of that. So, but yeah, you know, yeah, it's like they're like that online, you know, and they got, everybody has 5,000 opinions, and it's like, you know what? I didn't even want to do this ministry, you know. I didn't even want to be here. So you got 5,000 opinions about how I should be doing something, like, you know, well, do you want to start your own ministry? And you go ahead and go do what, you know, you think
do
needs
your
to be
way.
done.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, dang, dude. But yeah, I mean, I've seen negative comments from, you know, when we're at the porn convention, why are you guys there? You know, that's not godly, and this and that. And it's like, you know, in the beginning, I used to get fired up, and now I literally don't get any, but like, I don't get in Annie's comments. I don't get anybody that I love. I stay out their comment section because I know people are just in there saying dumb stuff, you know. And it's like,
it's gonna happen.
I wish somebody would have came and spoke to me like when I was working in that strip club. And you know, in the beginning, that hurt really bad. That never happened. That nobody ever came in, and I'm like, dang, how come nobody thought to come in there when I was in there? And then I was like, was I not worth enough for somebody to come in and like try to have a conversation? Like, you don't even have to come in hot, you know, and start, you know, given the gospel. You know, that could be scary for some of the girls. That could be a turnoff. You know, you don't know if they've been abused by a pastor or somebody in leadership, you know, as far as you know, Christian leadership and things like that. And so just thinking like, dang, dude, nobody could have came in and had a conversation with me. Like in the beginning, I had to try so hard not to think about that, because I always wondered, like, what would have happened? How much less pain I would have had to have gone through if somebody would have done that for me. So as soon as that sunk in, I was like, man, I don't care if they don't like that I'm at a porn convention. I don't care that they don't like that I'm inside of a strip club. I don't care that they don't like that I'm on the blade right now. Like, you know, you just got to kill that noise, because at the end of the day, they don't have a lake of fire to throw me into.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if I get, it ain't gonna be by them. And so over the years, God has really thickened my skin by giving me a really healthy fear of God and not man. You know, I get it. Like, I'm a lot of personality to take. You know, my highs are high and my lows are low. Like, I get it. I'm real straightforward. I shoot from the hip. I am committed to serving in excellence, you know, and I give nothing but the best. And I know that all of those things sometimes rub people the wrong way, and that's okay. You know, that's fine with me. My heart is never to offend anybody or hurt anybody, but on the same token, it's like, I can't be like walking on eggshells regarding certain things. So for me, you know, I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and that's totally fine. We have the relationships and the partnerships that we have, and I'm so grateful and blessed by those. And so the pushback that we get, you know, it's when it's against me, I really don't care. But if it's against somebody that I love, then I have to really watch myself, because I will rip them to shreds.
Yeah, I'm the same way. That's funny.
It won't be very Christian-like. So
that's not Christian. You have to give you the that's not Christian.
Yeah,
sticker.
I'd have to get a sticker on my forehead. That would be. So yeah, you know, and it is what it is. I found too, and you know, I think having our partnership with Victor and Eileen really solidified this for me, is that, you know, a lot of people like to talk that are not in the trenches. And it's real easy to talk when you're not in the muck and the mire.
Right. From the sidelines, right?
Oh yeah, it's so easy for these
Because
other
they're not in the
people.
game.
I've seen that happen to Victor and Eileen, and I'm like, I'm looking at these folks and I'm like, don't even listen to them. I'm like, they ain't even here. Like, they're not even
They ain't
here.
outside.
And it's like, so for me, it's like that solidified, like, just killing all that noise, like, just keep on pushing through. The sad part is, I will say, is that organizations and ministries like mine and like Annie's, that are survivor led, is we're the number one most underfunded. Survivor led ministries are way underfunded. And it's just crazy to me, because I'm like, how is there, like, oh, we want to support survivors and this and that, but we're like the most underfunded. And then on top of that, when I ask other survivor led ministries, like, how many churches support them on a monthly basis, and it's like none. Like, you leave us vulnerable to and at the mercy at, asking grants and federal funding for funding. And it's like, and then what happens then? Then they tie you up, right, with, you can't say Jesus, or you can't do a Bible study in your program if you're going to use our funding for that. Like, and these are, for federal grants and things like that. So
Yeah. You have to be inclusive and everything else.
yeah. And so for me, I'm like, dang, the body has really put us in a vulnerable position to where it's like, where do we go? Where do we go? We want to do all these big programs and have these big dreams for services and job placing and trainings for the girls. And it's like, how are we going to do all this? And we trust God. We know that it's in God's timing, but it just hurts a little bit to sit back and go, wow, we've kind of been put in a vulnerable position, and the body doesn't really see that or know that. So we're grateful for the partnerships that we have, and we we honor those that partner with us. There we have people that give to us on a monthly basis, and we're grateful for that. And we pray for all of the people that are pouring into our ministry, because without them, we would not be able to serve who we're serving, So the pushback and all that kind of like goes to the yeah. I got like 8 burners on here, and they're sitting on the 9th one all the way back there. So
yeah, I got one more question, one last question. Because you mentioned, like,
I got a question too.
You kind of had just an emotional moment where you were saying how you wish somebody would have came in, right? So I assume that you didn't have anybody in your life during that time telling you not to get into the industry, right? Is there something that you would say to yourself at 18 that, like, what would you say to yourself when you were at that point thinking about, because now it's not just a strip club. Now anybody can open up an OnlyFans or something like that. So what would you say to 18-year-old Sam?
You're the only person that's ever asked me that, and I've always prayed that nobody would ask me that question. Because I lament for that little girl that I was, and I grieve for her all the time. I grieve for her all the time, because I didn't have, I had just lost my dad, and I didn't have my mom around. And I would just tell her that there's so many other options. There's so many other people that you could reach out to. I just don't know who I would tell her to reach out to, because at the time I didn't have anybody to. I didn't know about ministries. I didn't know about organizations. That's why, to me, outreach is so important.
Right.
Because 90% of the time, girls are like, I didn't know something like this existed. I really, the only one thing I think I would tell myself that is available now and was available then was to cry out to God. I wish I would have just reached for Jesus. because I think I would have had the comfort that I have now. Because that comfort is like no other. I mean, when my therapist can't get through, when my husband can't get through, I mean, Jesus gets through. And he is the only reason that I have a sound mind to work with right now, because it may not be perfect, but I'm shocked that I'm functioning. I'm absolutely shocked that I'm functioning, because I should not be. And that's another thing too. I think why I value our partnership with Victor and Eileen so much, because for me, they're like spiritual parents. And, for people out there that have both of their parents that they can still go and ask questions to, like life questions. I don't have that, My mom passed away last year in May. And so May 13th, we're coming up. Thank you. On May 13th, we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary of her being gone. And, I didn't have that, where I could, you're running like I said, you're running a ministry, right? I know how to do the front end, right? Serving the girls and their families and going out and doing this, but the back end, like, all the business administrative stuff that goes into a nonprofit, into a ministry, I didn't know any of that. So like, to have people that I can go to, like a family, I feel like I have a family. I feel like I was running around like an orphan for so long, even though I was brought in, I wasn't an orphan spiritually anymore, right? Because I had already accepted Jesus, right? But like tangibly, like I didn't have a family. And so if people have that, if people have their mom and their dad, do not take that for granted, because that to me has always impacted me negatively. If my dad would have been around when I turned 18, I promise you, I would not have wound up in that strip club. I wouldn't have. My dad was a protector. He was super vigilant of me. I mean, he was very strict with me. There's no way I would have wound up where I wound up, So for me, if I was to talk to my 18-year-old self, I would just tell her that I'm so sorry for everything that she's been through so far, and that she can cry out to God, and that she can be healed through the love that Jesus gives for all of us, So that would be the one thing that is real now, and that was real back then. But as far as resources or reaching out to somebody, I mean, I didn't have anything or anybody that I knew of that I could reach out to.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's a great response too. Just the fact that we all can cry out to God, for answers, for help.
Jay.
Yeah. So that was actually my question as well.
Was it?
Word?
Yeah, it was.
Really?
Yeah, I wanted to ask that. Yeah.
I'm a mind reader.
And then at the same time, I was thinking about another question while she was talking, but she answered that too, which was, as parents,
this guy making up questions.
And as dads and fathers, like, what are things that we should be instilling in our kids and all of that. But she answered that. So here's another question I thought of.
Such a good question, though. I can add to that,
Go ahead.
Especially, I want to say, especially in minority families, right? Latinos, African American families, like, it is so important. I don't know if it's something that's culturally different with us or what, but I don't see as much engagement with fathers and their daughters in minority communities as I wish it did happen, And so I would say, going on daddy-daughter dates, dude, even if it's like, and I understand being on a budget, but it doesn't cost nothing to go to the park.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost nothing to, like over here in Vegas, you can park across the street from the airport and you can watch the planes land. I remember taking my kids and my foster kids to go get ice cream and then park right there and just watch the planes land.
Yeah.
just little things like that. I mean, if your daughters have cell phones, I would say monitor those phones to the umph degree. I know everybody's like, oh, I don't want to be a helicopter parent. Those days have long come and gone of not wanting to be a helicopter parent. Like, you have to be monitoring who they're talking to. There's another big misconception that trafficking only happens by the big white van that pulls up and like pulls the kid into the white van.
Right.
These girls are being groomed by pimps on social media.
Wow.
On different apps where there's chat rooms. You know, any game where there's a chat room, they're in there. Oh, you're so pretty. Is this, how old are you? And they ask too, do your parents check your phone? Do your parents have access to your phone? Oh, do you like this? Do you like that? Like, it's such a low and slow process that you will miss it if you're not actively involved in going through their phone.
Wow.
If your kids have social media, which I'm not a fan of, but I understand that some parents like to let their kids have social media, then you need to have the login and the passwords for all of those platforms. There's no such thing as, you know, I need to have my privacy. You don't need to be seeing. Yeah, I do need to be seeing. I need to be seeing everything. Your kids go over to spend the night, which, you know.
No, that don't happen.
Yeah.
That ain't no happen.
Not in my house.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, nope.
You guys are all predominantly Latinos, right? Okay, my dad was Irish, English, and German, and my mom was Guatemalan. Okay, so my dad'd be like, "Oh yeah, she could have a sleepover." And my mom's like, "What? We don't do that, and we don't do that in Latin homes." And I'm like, "Well, he said I could, so the white side of me is going out to stay over." But I didn't learn that, like, really even more so until me and Joe, you know, had Valerie, and then she's like, "Oh, I want to go sleep over at my cousin's house," and Joe was like, "No, we don't do that." And I was like, "Who's we?" He's like, "We, like me and you, we don't do that." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then he's like, you know, for the most part, like in Latin homes, he's like, you don't do sleepovers. He's like, that's like something white people do. I guess that's true, because my dad used to always encourage it.
You're like, I guess you're right.
It was only my dad encouraging. Oh, why don't you go hang out with your friends?
Well, that's probably because in Latin America, you know, you got those 28-year-olds with the 13-year-olds, you know.
I know,
like,
right?
that's like cool. Like, nah, I'm
Yeah.
not sending my 13-year-old over there.
Yeah, you know, so
Right.
yeah, if you, I would say, you know, if your kids are hanging out at somebody else's house, you better make sure you for sure know that family, who's coming in and out of that house.
I go to that. Like, if my daughter goes to a party, like, I'm right there at the party. We go into a party.
Yeah, we all going to a party. What outfit
No,
you
for real.
wearing?
For real.
Yeah.
I know, me too. I did that with Valerie.
We go into a party. What do you mean? Like,
Yeah.
and who
Yeah,
Plus
there?
one.
Yep. Plus
You
one.
have to. That could be
Plus
your
one.
daddy and daughter date night.
Yeah, right.
Yep. That's a free date. You was just talking about
Hey.
you get free food. You know what I
Hey,
mean?
I'll be like, pass me that pizza slice.
Yeah.
Right there. Yeah, I want some cake.
Dude, you have to be involved like that, because nowadays, I just was talking to a survivor this week. We had lunch. There was 4 survivors at a table, and we were all talking. And this one girl, she was talking about her old pimp, you know, the guy that had been trafficking her. And I said, "Is he still out here?" And she was like, "Yeah. And he has a son now." And I was like, "Oh, what does he do?" She's like, "He pimps now too." And I was like,
Wow.
and he's in high school. Yeah. And so I was just like, dang. And there's a lot of these boys pimping in high schools and in junior highs, or they're recruiting for their dads or their uncles that are pimps.
That's crazy.
Wow.
So you got to be real involved. Like, I know I tapped on that a little bit, but I wanted to say all this other stuff too, because you guys, it's not just the white van that's coming up. It's the dude at school that's like, "Why are you sad today?" "Oh, well, my dad, I wanted these jeans and my dad said I couldn't have them. So, oh, that's okay. I'll buy them for you."
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, you wanted those new Jordans and your dad wouldn't get them? Oh, that sucks. What size are you? I'll go ahead and get them for you."
Wow.
So it's like it's just real subtle stuff like that just starts, the grooming process of getting to know them and finding a vulnerability. That's mainly what it is. A perpetrator is going to find a vulnerability, and he's going to fill that void.
Just like the enemy, right?
That's how it is.
Crazy.
Good stuff.
One last question, and then
We keep saying that.
No, you keep saying that. I have a question.
No,
So
well,
stop saying last.
somebody took my question. I came up with another question.
Well, you just wasn't fast enough.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. What's something like a normal person who may be walking in the street, or it's in a restaurant or whatever? What are some clues or some things to look out for to know somebody might be in trouble or might be being trafficked? All around.
Yeah, that's a good question. We get that question a lot. And I mean, there's some things that you could look for. But like I said, with the tactics that they're using nowadays, a lot of the girls don't even realize that they're being groomed or they're being trafficked. We've met with girls that are like, "Oh no, I'm not being trafficked. He's my boyfriend and I just give him my money."
Right.
And it's like, do you see what I'm saying? Because it's been normalized. It's been made like it's just something that you do. And so, yeah, I mean, there are the rare occasions of where, somebody has physical signs on them. They're not wanting to make eye contact, old school pimp rules where the girl walks behind him or the whole stable walks behind him. There's things like that. I mean, for the untrained eye, it's kind of hard, and as you can imagine, for those of us that have been in the industry, I mean, we just see it. We can't turn it off. I could go to the movies and I could tell like, oh, this girl, she's out with her dude,
Yeah.
Wow.
But there's like, there's brandings that girls get from their pimps, from their traffickers, and it's different insignias or different names or different logos that they get. The main girl will sometimes have bottom bitch tattooed on her. That's the term. So I'm not trying to be crass or
right. No,
rude,
coach.
but that's what it's called. The bottom bitch is the main girl. She's the one that's, the main girl to the pimp, keeping the rest of the stable in check. She's the one collecting everybody's trap money. So yeah, if you ever come across a girl that has that tattooed on her, she's for sure been trafficked or is not being trafficked. So there's different things that you can look for. But for the most part, it's going to take somebody that does this.
Your trained eye, right?
Yeah, and for the most, and it's not even like I can train somebody to do this. It's like you've just been in the industry and you just know what it looks like, what what it talks like, you know what it sounds like that's just how it is.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. All right. So
a lot of stuff. This is why it's important. We need her.
Right. Yeah. So I do have something. What would you say to right now? There's a lot of kids, a lot of young ladies that are rebellious, right? They may have good parents. They may have parents that follow Christ, but sometimes children are just rebellious. They follow their friends more. And could be a girl out there who's thinking about doing that, thinking about stripping. What would you say to somebody like that as an outside voice?
I would say to her that I've unfortunately seen a lot of dead bodies from a lot of girls that were like, I got this. I'm fine. Nothing's going to happen. It's not that serious. And it winds up being that serious. It's the sad part is parents can reach out to us all day long, but at the end of the day, unless the girl's reaching out, we can't step in because it has to be the girl that wants the help. And so a lot of parents that contact us, the most heartbreaking thing that I have to say to them is that unfortunately she has to hit rock bottom and contact us. And all we can sit here and pray for is that she survives rock bottom. And so to the girls that, don't want to listen to their parents, are tired of, listen to that Jesus talk, and, they don't want to get prayed for one more time. And, there's so many different things that are influencing their mindset, shows. I mean, some of these shows that these kids watch, that is such a bad influence. Yeah, the music. I would just say to listen to if you don't want to listen to your parents, listen to those of us that have already lived it. I was 18 once, and I almost didn't survive what I willingly put myself into. Due to a lack of knowledge, right? A lack of maturity. You think you know everything at 18, and you just don't. I look back and I wish that I would have had somebody, that option, like if you could click on options of things that you want to have in your house. I mean, yeah, I would have clicked on the option of having two Christian parents in my house. And so I would just say, if you don't want to listen to your parents, listen to those of us that have already lived it, that have already gone through it. And we now share the stories of those that didn't live through it, that didn't make it through. And nothing is worse than watching a parent bury their child. I mean, that is, I've had to go to a lot of funerals, and that is the worst. That is the worst, right? But at least death is there's closure, right? There's a lot of girls that put themselves in situations that they think they're going to be able to handle, and they can't handle it. And then, they have a long road of healing and processing and therapy that they have to go through, because now they've, they didn't want to listen to the warnings of their parents and thought that they were going to be okay. And they wound up being in not okay situations. And, the long-term psychological repercussions that can occur when you don't listen to the warnings that your parents are giving you, that they're not fun. It's not fun. And I can't even express to you, I'm not educated enough to express to you in a more articulate way how much more this sucks. Like, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. I got good days, I got bad days, and I it's work that I have to put in, whether I like it or not, whether it's because things were done to me or I did them to myself. It's not fun, and it's something that I'll have to probably deal with for the rest of my life, which is, it is what it is. I just lean into God. So if you don't want to listen to your parents, listen to those of us that have already been through things in life that's not really fun and has a lot of consequences to it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
that's good.
Good stuff.
Wow. Well, we hope you enjoying this episode. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up. But where can people find you if they need to get a hold of you? Samantha, let everybody know the details.
You guys can email us on the website. You can also, on the website is RubiesLV.com. You can also email us at info@RubiesLV.com. And we are on Instagram. We are on Facebook. Trying to think of what else we have. I think that's it. My whole house is dark except for my media room, and I can't see where my husband's at. So I think that's all that we have. But yeah, I mean, if you reach out to us, we'll get back to you. I have an amazing assistant. Her name is Mackenzie. She's a trafficking survivor. She is a princess warrior. I mean, she has helped us out so much. She's been a huge blessing to us. She always says that we're a huge blessing to her, but she's a very huge blessing to us. And so, one of us will definitely get back to you.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Praise God.
Yeah, great.
Amen.
Yeah.
We appreciate you for coming on and spending time and expressing yourself. It was really blessing, man.
Yes,
Big
thank you
blessing.
so
Thank you
much.
guys for
Thank
having
you
me.
for coming on. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Shout out to
I
Matthew for saying keep doing your thing, fellas, bringing us exclusive content, especially on a very sensitive and much needed subject for sex trafficking. We appreciate you watching, Matthew. And yeah, with that, thanks again, everybody. We'll see you on the next episode. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't. And remember to learn more about RubiesLV. Check out the description below. And contact her for whatever speaking engagement at your church, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And those donations.
Yo, churches
Yes.
need to hurry up and help out too.
Yeah,
For real.
facts. Yeah, Ruby, don't go nowhere. And we'll see everybody in the next episode. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.